All right, so we're going to go over chapter 6 and 7 for The Great Gatsby. So, chapter 6. In the first few pages of this chapter, we learn about Gatsby's background. When did James Gatz change his name to J. Gatsby? Well, we learned that it was when he was 17. Why did he leave for college after just 2 weeks? Look at this little fun thing I found. He was frustrated that the people there didn't immediately recognize his greatness, and he felt that the janitor work was beneath him. Nick says, so he, Gatsby, invented just the sword of J. Gatsby. I don't think I like this little thingy here. I'm going to turn that off. Okay. Go back. Okay. He invented, just the sort of J. Gatsby that a 17-year-old boy would be likely to invent. And his conception, he was faithful to the end. For James Gatz, what does he expect the future J. Gatsby's life will be like? His new life will be fulfilled with every luxury. All of his dreams will come true, specifically at night, when he sets James' heart in a constant, turbulent riot, his desire for bigger, more gaudy displays of wealth. As a young man, he figures that glitz and bling are true symbols of wealth. He has a young North Dakota sense of what an elite, wealthy life would be like, and he thinks the bigger, the gaudier, the better. To young Gatz, what does Dan Cody's yacht represent? Well, all of the beauty and glamour in the world. Why does he not get the $25,000 left to him in Cody's will? So his mistress, Ella Kay, is able to make sure that Gatsby doesn't get the money through legal wranglings. So basically, she was able to make sure that he didn't get the money, even though it was willed to him. What lesson did young Gatsby learn from this incident? He learned that he can't rely on wealth to be given to him. He would have to earn it himself, even if it meant in the illegal way. After crossing paths with Gatsby, Tom says, I may be old-fashioned in my ideas, but women run around too much these days to suit me. So, a little ironic here, right? Because what's interesting and hypocritical about this, well, he's a hypocrite because he's done plenty of running around himself and he's attracted to women like Myrtle, who are exactly the kind of woman he's talking about here. What is Daisy's opinion of Gatsby's party? Well, she pretends to like it. She's kind of a little bit impressed with the stars, but honestly, she doesn't really like it. The people are loud, they're drunk, they're obnoxious, and although the party is ritzy and luxurious, there's really nothing classy about it. So again, it has to do with the old money and the new money. And to them, it's just gaudy and over the top and not classy. While the reader can have easily predicted Daisy and Tom's reaction to his party, Gatsby cannot. Why? He doesn't understand that what is truly appealing to the elite class. He still operates under the vision of wealth and luxury that he conjured for himself when he was 17. His vision of having made it is the new money's version of success. Grand, opulent, over the top, but the old money ways are far more understated and refined. What if Nick's view of representing the past, and what is Gatsby's opinion? Nick says you can't repeat the past, that you must move on, and Gatsby disagrees. He's determined to repeat the past and wants to pick up with Daisy right where they left off 5 years ago. Why is Gatsby's opinion unrealistic? Well, obviously, people change and life circumstances change. Daisy isn't the same girl that she was back in Louisville. She has a daughter and a complicated marriage with Tom, and you can't go back again. Okay, chapter 7. Why do you suppose Fitzgerald links the behavior of the characters to the hottest day of the summer? So Fitzgerald has the weather mirror the growing heat or the tension among the characters and the love triangle. Things are hot and miserable, and this use of weather foreshadows the blow up at the hotel room. So it's like in Romeo and Juliet, when Mercutio says, let's retire, the day is hot, the Capulets are about, and I fear we might not escape a blow or a brawl. I forget exactly. But again, it's common to use this heat to bring everything to a head. When Gatsby briefly meets Daisy's little girl, he is somewhat unnerved. Symbolically, what does this little girl represent? Well, she's the physical evidence that he cannot repeat the past. So just like Pearl and the Scarlet Letter, right, is the embodiment of the sin, this little girl is the embodiment of Daisy and Tom's relationship, and he can't erase the fact that Daisy has a daughter, and she doesn't fit into Gatsby's view of his future with Daisy. She's evidence that proves that Nick is right about being unable to relive the past. What causes Tom to realize that his wife has been having an affair with Gatsby? Well, he can read between the lines as Daisy is fawning over Gatsby at lunch that day, and he can tell from the tone of her voice, which is not discreet. So they're openly flirting and fawning over each other, and Tom's not dumb. He's a bunch of things, but not dumb, so he gets it. What does Gatsby understand about Daisy's voice that Nick does not? He knows that part of her voice's allure is that it sounds like money, like gold coins jingling. So to somebody who has aspired to have money, right, and to have this kind of aurora of having all of these things, Daisy is that embodiment, right? Like her voice, the way she acts, the way she talks. And that's what he's trying to imitate with his old sport, but it just doesn't work for him. Describe the driving arrangements that bring the 5 characters into the city. So Daisy and Gatsby drive together in Tom's car, while Tom drives Nick and Jordan in Gatsby's yellow car. Why do you suppose Tom decides to let Wilson finally have the car he has been promising him? So if you remember when he stopped 4 with Nick, Wilson was like, when are you going to sell me that car? When are you going to sell me that car? And Tom keeps putting him off. But now he feels slightly uncomfortable when he has to face the pain that the affair has caused Wilson. And if Wilson's planning on taking Myrtle out west, then Tom must figure one last deal on a car is something he owes to the poor man that he's turned into a wimp. What indication is there at this point that in Myrtle's mind, Tom has been more than a fling? Myrtle has refused to move away with her husband. Clearly, she wants to stay in New York because she's imagining still that she'll have some sort of future with Tom. We know that Tom has no intention of leaving Daisy for somebody. Could you imagine taking Myrtle to a party and how she would act? And it would be a scandal. Besides Myrtle, what other eyes keep the vigil on the activities along the road? So many of times we hear about this billboard, right, with these eyes that are looking down, almost like God. Dr. T.J. Eckelberg's eyes from the billboard. And they're also watching everyone, just like Myrtle was watching from her window. As always, there's a grain of truth in what Gatsby says. In what sense is he indeed an Oxford man? He participated in a study abroad program for soldiers after the war, and he attended some classes at Oxford, but he was really there only 5 months. But he did go to Oxford. Daisy says that Tom is revolting. To what can you imagine she is referring? He says that he loves her, but he admits that he sometimes goes off on a spree and has an affair. He's admitting to his infidelity in the same breath that he says he loves her. Why does Daisy have a tough time saying, as Gatsby wishes, that she never loved Tom? Even though it goes against Gatsby's wishes, there was a time when Daisy did love Tom. She can't erase the fact that they had some good times together. Why is it so important to Gatsby that Daisy says she never loved Tom? In order for his fantasy to be complete, he needs to hear that her love for him was pure, that she could never love any other man. This isn't true, of course, just as the dream that Gatsby has cannot be achieved. How has Gatsby earned most of his money, and what does Tom say that startles Gatsby? Gatsby has illegally earned his money by bootlegging, which you probably figured out by now, and having shady business operations. Tom startles Gatsby when he knows that Gatsby is up to a bigger score, something of which Tom's contact Walter doesn't know the details. How has Gatsby earned most of his money, and what does Tom say? Oh, we have that one. Okay. He also brings up about how he's in with that Meyer Wolfsheim and how he's up to no good. And the bigger thing, and he says like, oh my gosh, you even tried to draw Nick in. So he really paints a picture here of Gatsby in a totally different light than Daisy has seen him. And her reaction to this news, she's terrified and then pulls back from Gatsby. Eventually, she begs Tom to stop talking and attacking Gatsby, and she wants to go home with Tom because this guy who's mixed up with this gangster and bootlegging and all of these things is not something that she can accept, especially with her old money snobby background. Describe the hit and run scene. So we have Myrtle, who's been locked up by her husband, and she spots the flashy yellow car that she saw Tom driving earlier in the day. So she breaks out of her home and runs into the street trying to flag down Tom, but not realizing that Tom isn't in that car. The car, driven by Daisy, mows down Myrtle and then leaves the scene of the accident. Later, Gatsby tells Nick that Daisy was driving, but that he'll take the blame in order to protect her. Now who's this beautiful fool? Why does Tom make the point to Wilson that he just drove the coupe from New York and the yellow car does not actually belong to him? He knows that Wilson saw him driving the very same car earlier that afternoon, and he wants to remove any suspicion that may fall on him. What indication is there that Tom really was fond of Myrtle? When he realizes that Myrtle's been hurt, there's a harsh sound in his throat, and he pushes his way towards the front of the crowd to see her. What does the reader learn that Tom doesn't know? We know that Daisy, not Gatsby, was the driver of that car that hit Myrtle. What is the scene that Nick observes taking place between Tom and Daisy in the kitchen? They are talking together at a table. They're eating fried chicken. It's cold. They're having a couple of bottles of beer. Tom is talking. Daisy's nodding in agreement, and Tom's big hand wraps over Daisy's hand. It's clear to Nick that they're conspiring together. So this is probably when Daisy confides in him, and he's telling her how they're going to get her out of this mess. Now, they have no idea that Gatsby, being this lovesick fool, is willing to take the blame. What does this scene suggest ill for Gatsby? Well, Tom has won. Daisy will follow Tom and do as he says. He's the one that she's turning to, right? This is the guy that's going to rescue her and not Gatsby. All right, so that's all of the questions. I hope you enjoyed that and the chapters. And I'll talk to you guys later.